Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Midnight Affairs Tales. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know what part of the world you are watching from right now. Let us know in the comments. Now let's dive into today's story, Chapter 1. Oil on his hands, blood on his past. The socket wrench clicked once, twice, then fell still in Cal's grip. He was under a '97 Impala, grease on his arms, sweat clinging to his neck, the muffler inches from his cheek. Outside the bay door, the Arizona heat buzzed like static, dry and humming through the air. Then he heard it, laughter. Not the normal kind. Not tired, polite, or from a podcast she always played too loud. No, this one was different. Alive. It floated through the open garage office window. His wife's voice. And someone else's. He slid out from under the car, slow, quiet. He did not stand up right away. Just lay there on the concrete, staring at the low ceiling fan barely turning. The laughter continued. Then it dipped low, into a murmur, and one word caught him. Trent. Cal blinked. He had never heard that name in his house before. He stood, walked to the open door casually, just in time to hear his wife say, "You know he still thinks I'm running errands? Poor guy. Fixing carburetors while I get taken out for steak." Silence. Then she added, with a laugh that felt like a blade sliding into soft skin, "He is just a mechanic now." The world did not tilt. It shrank, pulled tight around Cal's chest like a steel clamp. He turned around, picked up the wrench, held it for a second, then placed it back on the bench, exactly where it had been. No rush, no reaction. Outside, a bird landed on the power line, chirping. Cal walked back under the Impala, lay down, and resumed tightening the bolts. Click, click. His hands never trembled. But his eyes? His eyes had gone dark. Question: what kind of man gets underestimated in his own home? And what happens when he decides not to be? Wait, if this story gave you chills or made you think twice about trust, don't just scroll away. Hit that like button to support the channel, and subscribe if you never want to miss another jaw-dropping tale. We drop new stories every week that'll leave you speechless. To everyone who's already subscribed, sending you heartfelt love and thanks. Join the family, because here, every story hits different. Now, let's dive back into the story. 2 nights later, Lena was already asleep. Cal moved through the house like he used to move through war zones, silent, intentional, invisible. He passed the family photos. Their wedding picture, her smile, his uniform. All of it sat too still now, like museum exhibits. In the kitchen, he opened the junk drawer. Not the obvious one on top, where bills and pens went. The one beneath it. The one she always closed too quickly. There it was. A small, silver burner phone. No case. No lock screen. He turned it on. No sound. Just a faint blue glow in the dark. Messages. Dozens. Trent, last night was insane. Still can't believe you said that with your husband asleep down the hall. Trent, meet me tomorrow, same spot. Wear that black dress. Cal exhaled slowly through his nose. Not anger. Precision. He went into his shop. Flipped the light on. On the wall above the bench was a plain wooden cabinet. Inside, buried beneath old wrenches, was a Ziploc bag. Inside that, a thumb drive, a pen camera, gloves, things he had told himself he would never touch again. He picked up the camera, turned it over in his palm. There was no sound, no dramatic music, just the faint tick of the wall clock. He placed the phone back exactly where it had been, closed the drawer. Then he walked into the garage, pulled down the heavy metal door, and sat on his stool in the dark. No movement, no phone, just him, and the quiet hum of a man waiting to become something again. The next day, Lena made pancakes. She smiled, wore that robe he had bought her last Christmas, kissed him on the cheek, and called him babe. Cal nodded, ate the pancakes, chewed slowly, said nothing. When she left for her yoga class, Cal waited 5 minutes, then followed. She drove east, past the gym, past the co-op, past everything she had said was on her schedule. He kept his distance. 2 cars behind. No radio. Just the sound of tires on asphalt and the soft creak of his knuckles on the steering wheel. She turned into a gated community, entered a code, drove in. Cal did not follow. He parked a block away. walked the rest of the way on foot, moving through side lots and alleyways. He had done this before. In Bogota, in Berlin, now in Arizona. He reached the corner of a privacy fence, crouched low, and waited. 2 minutes later, her car reappeared, pulling into the driveway of a cream-colored house. The man waiting on the porch had slicked back hair and a wine glass in his hand. Trent. They kissed. Not quickly, not nervously. It was practiced. Familiar. Cal watched through a small gap in the fence. He pulled out the pen camera, clicked it on. He filmed them walk inside. The door closed. The scent of gardenia came from a bush beside him. Sweet. Too sweet. He stood there for another 60 seconds. Not blinking. Not breathing heavily. Just standing in the shade while the house swallowed his wife. Then he turned. Walked back to his truck. In the rearview mirror, he looked at himself. Not the man Lena saw. Something else. Something she had forgotten. And something Trent would never see coming. 3 nights later, Lena came home late. The clock above the stove read 11:47 p.m. Cal was at the kitchen table. Same shirt. Same quiet stare. A beer sat untouched in front of him, condensation trailing down the glass. Lena kicked off her heels like she owned the room. Sorry, she said, not sounding sorry. Amber's car broke down. We were stuck forever. Cal nodded once. You smell like whiskey. She paused, then smiled. Yeah. We stopped for one drink. He stood, walked to the fridge. How is Amber? Same as always. Dramatic. Lost her phone again. He handed her a bottle of water. She took it without looking at him. Then she said it, casually, like it meant nothing. You know, I saw Trent today. He said he might need a mechanic for one of his cars. A smirk twitched on her mouth. But I told him you were just a mechanic now. You are probably too busy with spark plugs, and whatever it is you fix. Her tone was light, teasing, but her eyes said something else. Cal leaned against the counter, stared at her. No emotion, no blink. She laughed nervously. God, relax. It was a joke. He reached into a drawer, pulled out a small black rag, wiped his hands, even though they were clean. I fix broken systems, he said quietly. That is what I do. She tilted her head. Okay. Then she yawned. I am beat. Shower and sleep. She walked away. He waited until he heard the water running upstairs. Then he took the bottle of whiskey from the trash, opened the cap. Inside, at the bottom, was a business card soaked in liquid. He pulled it out with tweezers. Trident Private Risk Solutions underneath, a handwritten name. Trent Weldon, Director. Cal folded the card once and burned it in the sink. Just a mechanic? She had no idea what he used to dismantle in the dark. Cal sat at his desk in the garage. A wall of tools surrounded him, wrenches, pliers, socket sets. But none of those were what he reached for. He opened a rusted tin box beneath the bottom drawer. Inside, an old military flash drive. A USB scrambler. A prepaid laptop with no operating system traceable back to him. He plugged everything in and got to work. Trent Weldon. Search results exploded across the screen. Real estate empire. Media ties. Quiet political donors. But beneath the polished surface were shell companies, fake LLCs, and security consulting contracts tied to an outfit known only as Trident. Cal clicked deeper. No public details. But he recognized the logo. He had seen it on a crate in Yemen, and again during a failed extraction in Moldova. That was not a real estate guy. That was an operator. Cal sat back. This was not just infidelity. This was a setup. His wife had not just fallen for another man. She had wandered into a den of wolves. Or maybe she had led one in. He clicked print on the report. 40 pages began sliding out of the printer. He sealed them in a folder, marked it with a red X, and stored it in the safe beneath the floor panel behind his tool cabinet. Then he opened a locked locker and removed a camera drone. Quiet, fast, no lights. The kind no one sees coming. That night, he followed Lena again. But this time, the drone followed her instead. It hovered above her car as she parked at a different house on the edge of town. Not Trent's home. A rental. Unlisted. Through the feed, Cal watched her enter. 30 minutes later, a man arrived. Trent. Cal zoomed in. They were not meeting as lovers. They were exchanging envelopes. Lena's routine did not change. She still kissed him in the morning, still asked him if he wanted eggs or toast, still laughed at bad sitcoms with him on the couch. But now, Cal followed her every move. He planted a fiber optic camera in her car's dashboard vent, set it to activate on voice trigger. He made copies of her keys, photographed her journal, checked the water meter every day after she showered, calculated how long it took her to wash. Too long, too often. She had a second life now, and it ran on a strict schedule. Cal used to train for this, reading patterns, finding gaps. But this was different. This was personal. He started mirroring her behavior. When she lied, he smiled. When she joked, he laughed. When she touched him, he held her just long enough to hide the truth. Because the truth was, routine was his camouflage now. Each night, after she slept, he watched the drone feed on his hidden laptop. He listened to every whisper she shared with Trent, watched the money exchange, listened to names being mentioned that no civilian should know. He began to suspect this was never about her wanting someone new. This was about someone wanting him. Someone who knew what Cal used to be, and who thought they could use her to get to him. The next time Lena walked into the garage to bring him coffee, he smiled and said thank you. She smiled back. You work too hard, babe. Cal nodded. Some things are worth fixing properly. As she left, he glanced at the wall clock. 3 seconds late from yesterday's routine. It was starting to crack. And when patterns crack, systems fail. Cal was just a mechanic now, which meant he had everything he needed to take this entire operation apart, bolt by bolt. At the edge of a construction zone just outside Chandler, Arizona, sat a boarded-up house that had never been listed. It was a development that had gone bankrupt mid-build. No permits, no records. But one of those properties? It was Cal's. He had bought it under a dummy LLC years ago, an asset he had never planned to use again. Until now. The exterior looked abandoned. Weather-beaten siding, shattered back window, weeds punching through cracked pavement. But inside, the place had power, surveillance gear, a secure laptop station, and soundproof insulation installed beneath the drywall. Cal unlocked the door and stepped inside, the dust shifting under his boots. Every corner smelled of concrete and dried wood, cold and quiet. He booted up his equipment. The drone feed appeared instantly. Trent was pacing a rented living room, speaking into a burner phone. The audio was grainy but clear. He is off-grid, but not dead. You are not hearing me. He is watching us. He knows. A pause. Then Trent added, if you want this man dead, I am going to need more than her. Cal's jaw locked. He backed the video up 10 minutes and hit record. Every word, every movement. Stored. The files began uploading to an encrypted drive hidden behind a panel in the wall. He watched the progress bar inch forward. Then he checked the second feed. Inside his own garage, at home. Lena was in there. She was not doing anything suspicious. Just standing, looking around. Her hand trailed over his bench, over the drawers. She opened the top one. Cal leaned closer to the screen. She found nothing, but she stared too long. Then she smiled, just slightly, and closed it. Cal stared at the screen. She knew he was hiding something. Now she was looking for it. The next Friday night, Lena dressed slowly. Cal watched her from the kitchen, unseen. She wore a black dress, simple but sharp. Hair curled. Lipstick carefully applied. He knew that look. It was the one she used to wear when they would go out to real dinners. Not fast food. Not small-town diners. Places with candles on the table and string quartets near the bar. She had not worn that look for him in years. He stayed silent. Just watched. Going out with Amber, she said as she passed by, grabbing her purse. Cal nodded, pretending not to notice she had changed her perfume. He waited 10 minutes, then followed her. Parked at a distance. The drone picked her up a block before she reached the house. She pulled into the driveway of the rental again. Trent opened the door this time. Shirt unbuttoned. Hand extended. She walked straight into him. The kiss was long, confident. His hands slid around her waist. Hers into his hair. Cal watched the live feed. Not a flinch. Not a blink. But he did turn up the audio. I miss this, Trent said. Then stopped vanishing every other night, Lena whispered, smiling. Cal tracked every frame. Every voice tone. Every word. They had a pattern. She said she loved him, but not the way she used to say it to Cal. There was no depth behind it, just repetition. Scripted. He replayed the footage in slow motion, studied the hand placements, the eye movements. They were coordinated. Too clean. She was not just cheating. She was managing. This was not love. This was business. The drone zoomed out slowly, rising above the rooftop, capturing the whole quiet scene. Below, two liars played house. Above, a ghost watched, waiting to strike. Back in the hidden house, Cal opened a steel case marked Archive 03. Inside, two ID tags, an encrypted notebook, and a rusted combat knife with a nicked edge. He took out the notebook. The pages crackled. He stopped on one marked Operation Veil Cutter. There, among the faded names and notes, was a familiar phrase, Trident, asset acquisition via emotional leverage, target destabilization preferred, long-term surveillance via domestic breach. He remembered the mission. Caracas, 2019, a compromised operative in a high-rise. Target's wife had been used to pull secrets out of him. She had been threatened with exposure unless she cooperated. The plan had worked, until the target found out. That man disappeared. No body, no trail, no loose ends. And now Trent was using the same playbook. Cal sat still. The room buzzed with low electricity. Rain started hitting the roof above, light at first, then harder. He stared at the combat knife. 3 years ago, he had erased someone for this exact kind of infiltration. He had told himself he would never do it again. But the more he watched Lena and Trent, the more he saw the same patterns. And this time, it was personal. His phone buzzed once. A new message had appeared on the drone feed. Target compromised. Moved to Phase 3. Cal stared at the screen. Trent was not working alone. And someone, somewhere, had just approved the next stage. Cal stood, picked up the combat knife, slid it into a sheath behind his lower back. The ghost they wanted to bait? He was not hiding anymore. It was 7:13 p.m. The lasagna had burned on the edges, but Lena served it anyway, scraping the top with a knife as if trying to hide it. The kitchen lights flickered once. Old wiring. Cal sat at the head of the table, cutting his food silently. The house smelled of garlic and wine, but neither covered the tension in the room. Lena sipped from her glass. You have been quiet this week. Long days, Cal said. You should take a break. Maybe close the shop early for a few days. Cal looked at her, expression unreadable. I fix things. That is what I do. She smiled politely. It was the kind of smile that came from obligation, not affection. Then her phone buzzed. She reached for it quickly, too quickly, and turned it over, screen down. Cal watched. Said nothing. She cleared her throat. Amber wants to meet this weekend. I might head out Saturday morning. He nodded slowly. Tell her I said hello. There was a silence. Not the comfortable kind. The kind that fills the air like smoke, choking out truth. She stood to clear the plates. Her hand brushed his shoulder as she passed. He did not move. She paused, just for a second, waiting for a reaction. Any reaction. There was none. He picked up his glass and took a long sip. Set it down gently. She went to the sink and stared out the window, her reflection barely visible in the glass. She thought he felt nothing, that he had become numb, a man dulled by routine. But pain had simply changed shape inside him. He felt everything. He just did not show it. Because the last time he had shown pain, someone had died. Later that night, Cal sat alone in the garage. The only light came from a desk lamp, casting long shadows across the walls lined with tools. The drone footage from earlier glowed on the monitor. Trent and Lena again, smiling, whispering. The same laugh she used to give him when they were young, back when they lived in a rented trailer and shared one pillow between them. She had taken that laugh and given it to someone else. Cal closed the laptop. He looked around the shop. Every inch of it was his. He had built it himself, plumbed the lines, ran the wiring, poured the concrete floor with his own hands. He had done it for her. For them. He remembered her holding blueprints with ink smudged on her fingers. Remembered her saying, "One day this place will be ours." He had believed her. She did not know what that silence cost him. Every time he smiled and said nothing. Every time he let her lie. Every time he pretended he did not see the truth crawling under her skin. She thought his silence was weakness. It was not. It was strategy, because he had learned in the field. Information dies when exposed too early. He reached under the bench and unlocked a hidden drawer, pulled out a wrapped package. Inside, a hard drive with all the footage, all the recordings, every lie documented. He placed it in a small metal case and marked it with a red tape strip. Not for her. Not yet. But when the time came, when the silence ended, she would hear every second of it. And then, she would understand what he had really given her. Not forgiveness. Not rage. But time. Time to see how far she would fall. The next morning, Cal walked into an open house in East Chandler wearing a pressed shirt and a quiet smile. His beard was trimmed. His sleeves rolled neatly above the elbow. He looked like a man considering a second property. The agent greeted him. "Mr. Carter?" "That is me," Cal said. Fake name. Real intent. Trent's real estate firm owned the house, though he was not expected to be on site. That was fine. Cal did not come to meet him. He came to plant something. He made idle conversation with the agent, took the tour, commented on the view. But in the upstairs office, as the agent walked ahead, Cal slipped a small device under the lip of the desk, camouflaged to look like a cable hub. It was not. It was a wireless feed scanner. It would link back to his station at the ghost house, record encrypted audio and reroute surveillance footage from any phone connected nearby. He had used it once during a consulate breach in Argentina. Now it was logging into Trent's systems. On the way out, he took a call on his burner. "This is Cal," he said, his voice low. "The hook is in." He ended the call, walked back to his truck. As he drove, a message appeared on his device. New signal linked. Trident Network Node 3. He smiled. They thought he was tracking them. But now, he was inside their system. And once he got deep enough, he would not need to watch them anymore. He would make them watch him. Trent's office looked like money. Polished walnut desk, leather chairs, and a bar cart stocked with scotch bottles that had never been opened. Cal stood just inside the door, quiet and polite, while the receptionist tapped keys and glanced up with a friendly smile. "He will be right with you, Mr. Carter," she said. Cal nodded. No rush. He had worn his second-best boots, the ones scuffed enough to look working class, but clean enough to walk into any office without question. His sleeves were rolled just enough to show the calluses on his forearms. No one looked twice at a man like him. He was just a mechanic, which made him invisible. The receptionist returned to her screen. Cal scanned the room. Discrete cameras in the corners, motion sensors in the ceiling vents, subtle but not covert. These people were not amateurs. They had real infrastructure. Perfect. The office door opened. Trent stepped out with a smile that was too wide. "Mr. Carter, you are looking for a shop space investment, yeah?" "That is the idea," Cal replied, shaking his hand. "Something I can run part-time. Maybe expand later." They made small talk. Trent offered him a drink, which Cal declined. In 10 minutes, they were discussing square footage and power loadouts, all while Cal's hidden transmitter, buried in his belt buckle, scraped every Bluetooth signal in the building. Trent leaned over the table, pointing to a printout. "Now this lot here, it is clean. Clean title, clean permit history." Cal smiled. That is good to know. What he really wanted was not on the paper. He wanted access to the server closet down the hall. He wanted the meeting times coded in Trent's calendar. He wanted to find out why a corporate real estate agent was using encrypted communications tied to a private defense firm. And now he had it. Trent kept talking, and Cal kept listening. That night, Lena came into the garage holding a plate of food. "I made steak," she said. "Your favorite." Cal looked up from the bench. "That is nice of you. You have been working so much lately. I thought we could eat together." She set the plate beside him. Perfect cut. Medium rare. Butter-glazed carrots. Mashed potatoes with black pepper on top, just like he always liked. He stared at it for a moment. "Looks great," he said. She smiled, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. He picked up the fork, cut the steak, took a bite. Perfect. Juicy. Familiar. But it tasted like memory, not comfort. She sat on the stool across from him, her eyes soft. "So, I was thinking," she began. Maybe we should take a trip. Just us. Get out of town. Breathe a little. Cal looked at her. That sounds nice. Somewhere quiet. Maybe that lake house we used to talk about. Sure. She smiled. I will check the dates. She was acting again, playing the part of a wife trying to reconnect. But her hands betrayed her, nails tapped too fast on the edge of the stool, and her knee bounced under the counter. Cal had seen lies before. They had a rhythm. You still love me? She asked softly. He set his fork down, looked her dead in the eye. Why would you ask me that? I just want to know. He stood, walked to the sink, and washed his hands. I think you already do, he said without turning around. She stayed silent. Behind him, her breath caught for a split second. Then she stood, the stool scraping the floor, and left. The door clicked shut behind her. Cal dried his hands, returned to the bench. He had recorded everything, including the moment her voice cracked. 3 days later, at 3:02 p.m., Cal stood at the edge of the back lot behind Trent's rental property. It was blistering hot, the kind of heat that dried sweat before it could fall. He held the burner phone in one hand, the same one he had taken from Lena weeks ago and cloned. He typed slowly. No emotion. You left your watch under my seat. I have it. You know where. He had sent. The message went to Trent. Then he powered down the phone and tossed it into a nearby trash bin already burning with drywood. Watched the plastic melt into nothing. He walked away. 3 blocks down, a second burner phone in his truck buzzed. A reply. Be there in 20. Do not wait outside. Exactly as planned. Cal was already 3 steps ahead. Back at the ghost house, the surveillance cameras were synced. The mics were active. One in the kitchen vent, another under the hall table. He watched the clock. At 3:24, Trent entered. Cal watched on the screen as Lena met him inside. Their voices came through clean. You said this was urgent, she whispered. Trent held up the watch. He found it. I thought you were being careful. I was. I do not know how he. You sure he does not suspect anything? A pause. He has not said a word, Lena said. He is just quiet. Like always. Trent stared at her. Well, he is not stupid. And if he finds out what you gave me, I told you, he does not know about the files. Cal stared at the screen. Files? He rewound. Played it again. She was not just meeting Trent. She had given him something. Something stolen from Cal's past. Something she should have never had. His jaw clenched. He leaned closer to the monitor. What files, Lena? He whispered. At 1:07 a.m., Cal slipped through the side alley behind Trent's rental. The sky was starless. Even the wind had gone quiet. That was the thing about the Arizona desert. When it went still, it felt like the entire world was holding its breath. Cal knelt by the electrical box. Trent's system was corporate-grade. Standard firewall. Keypad entry. Motion-triggered cameras. Not bad for someone pretending to be a real estate agent. But Cal had cracked better locks in darker places. This one was personal. He inserted a bypass tool the size of a thumb drive and waited. 32 seconds later, the screen blinked green. Cameras down. System reboot loop initiated. He moved quickly. Inside the house, the air was stale. Not lived in. It had the cold stillness of a place used, not inhabited. He passed through the hallway, careful not to touch the floorboards that creaked. He had already mapped those out from hours of external surveillance. Trent's office was the third door on the left. The safe behind the bookshelf was not even hidden well. Cal pulled the shelf aside, cracked the digital pad, and opened it. Inside were documents, 2 drives, and a black folder labeled Target, Calvin Strong Classified. Observe, disrupt, eliminate. He stared at it. They had a file on him. Photos. A scan of his old military ID. Mission history. Declassified and redacted but still damning. Notes scribbled by hand. Someone had been digging into his past. Deep. Then he saw it. A photo of Lena. Smiling. A sticky note attached. Approved asset. Leverage initiated. Cal closed the folder slowly. This had never been just an affair. This was a hunt. And he had been the prey all along. Back in the ghost house, Cal laid out the documents like a forensic map. Each photo. Each file. Each connection. He drew lines on a whiteboard with red marker. Lena, Trent, Trident, his own name printed in a font he had never seen outside Black Ops records. He zoomed in on a still from the drone footage. The moment Lena passed Trent an envelope, he enhanced it frame by frame. Inside, a flash drive, marked with a date. 6 years ago. He opened the contents from a duplicate copy he had pulled from Trent's computer during the breach. There it was. Operation Longfall, Field Intel Recordings Calvin Strong, redacted black site audio. He clicked play. A voice came through. His voice. From a time before the shop. Before Lena. He was interrogating a man in a language he barely remembered. Tactical. Cold. He remembered that mission. It had gone bad. 3 agents killed. No official closure. And now his own recordings had surfaced, sold, passed like currency, used to tag him as a loose end. He sat back, knuckles tight. She had stolen that from his storage drive, the one in the garage, hidden beneath the welding table. She must have found it months ago. She had taken his past and handed it to a man who wanted him gone. She had not just betrayed the marriage. She had betrayed the man he used to be. The silence in the room pressed in from all sides. Cal stood, walked to the sink, and poured a glass of water. He did not drink it. He stared out the boarded-up window, hands clenched around the glass. This was no longer about revenge. This was a mission now, and missions had rules. 3 days passed. Cal played the role of the tired husband perfectly. Came home late, washed up, slept beside her without speaking much. He laughed at the right jokes. Kissed her forehead before heading to the garage. But every moment was measured. Every step was calculated. He planted a micro-recording inside her favorite necklace, the one he had given her on their 5th anniversary. She wore it almost daily. That night, he heard everything. She called Trent. "I do not know how much longer I can keep this going," she whispered. "He is too quiet. It is like he is watching without watching. He is trained." "Of course he is watching," Trent replied. "But he does not know what you gave me. You covered it well. He asks nothing. But it is like his silence is louder than shouting." Trent paused. "Just keep tracking his movements. We still need his full archive." Cal paused the recording. Sat still. She was not being blackmailed. She was cooperating. Freely. Voluntarily. Whatever excuses she might make later, pressure, manipulation, they would not matter now. Because she was helping them watch him. She had taken the man who gave her everything and turned him into a target. Cal reached for his notepad, flipped to a clean page. At the top, he wrote, Phase 1, done. Below it, Phase 2, wreck them. He stood, pulled a case from under the floorboard. Inside were 3 passports, 2 identities, a burner loaded with encrypted back channels. He checked the lock on the reinforced door, then armed the silent perimeter alarms. She thought she knew what he was capable of. She had no idea. The desert wind picked up just after dusk. Cal stood on the rooftop of a closed warehouse 3 miles outside city limits. Below, floodlights blinked along the dirt road that led to a shipping yard, one of the shell company addresses linked to Trident's Arizona network. Through his scope, he watched a convoy of 3 black SUVs pull up to the gate. 2 men exited the lead vehicle. Both wore gray tactical uniforms. One of them scanned the area with military discipline. He did not move like security. He moved like a soldier. They opened the trunk. Cal zoomed in. Inside, cases of data hardware. Locked. Marked with the Trident logo. These were not real estate records. This was their off-grid operations hub. And they were moving it. He recorded everything. Captured the license plates, faces, timestamps. But he did not interfere. Not yet. He watched until the last SUV drove off, headlights vanishing down the long road. Then he stepped back, phone to his ear. "It is active," he said into the line. "They are pulling sensitive assets, possibly burning local ties." The voice on the other end replied calmly. "And they still think you are a dormant ghost?" "They think I am dead," Cal answered. "They are about to wish that was true." He ended the call, stood in silence a moment. Then he walked to the edge of the roof, climbed down the service ladder, and disappeared into the darkness. By the time anyone figured out what he had seen, he would be too far ahead to stop. The next morning, Lena found a flash drive on the kitchen counter. No note, no explanation, just her name written in red marker across the plastic shell. She stared at it for a full minute before picking it up and walking to the garage, where Cal was under the hood of an old truck. She stood there, frozen. He did not look at her. "I found this," she said quietly. He kept working. "What is it?" He pulled a wrench from the tray, tightened a bolt. "You should watch it." Her voice wavered. "Cal." Now he looked up. His face was unreadable. "You owe me that much." She hesitated, then turned and walked back inside. It took 20 minutes before the first scream. Cal heard it through the window sharp, raw. She had seen everything. Her face on surveillance. Her voice agreeing to deliver files. Trent's instructions. The handoffs. The lies. All recorded. All documented. She ran back to the garage, the flash drive clenched in her hand like a weapon. "How long have you known?" she gasped. "Long enough." Tears filled her eyes. It was not supposed to go this far. "I thought." "You thought I would never notice?" he asked. "You thought I was just a mechanic?" She broke. The tears came fast now, ragged sobs. "I did not mean to hurt you." He stepped forward. "Just once." "No. You meant to erase me." She fell to her knees, clutching the flash drive. He said nothing more, just turned, wiped the grease from his hands, and walked back into the house. He had seen people break before. On battlefields. In black sites. He never expected it to happen in his own driveway. But this time it was earned. At 3:43 p.m., Lena left the house without saying a word. Cal watched her go. She wore the same necklace. The same one that had been broadcasting her location for weeks now. He sat at the control desk inside the ghost house, watching her move across the city map in real time. She did not go to Amber's. She did not go to the gym. She drove 27 minutes west, into a neighborhood where the street signs were cracked and the streetlights never worked. At 4:10, she stopped in front of an old motel. Room 204. Second floor. A man opened the door. "Trent." She walked in. No hesitation. Cal leaned back. He could hear the conversation now, crackling through a hidden mic wired into her necklace. "We are exposed," Trent said. Lena replied, voice shaking. "He knows everything. He recorded it all. Every conversation." Trent cursed under his breath. "Did he say what he is planning?" "No. But he left me a drive. He wanted me to see it. Wanted me to know." There was a long pause. Then Trent said something that made Cal lean forward. "If he goes public, you are going down too." "That is not going to happen." Cal froze the audio. Rewound. Played it again. "If he goes public, you are going down too." "That is not going to happen." It was a threat. Not just to her. To him. And now, they were both dangerous to each other. Cal looked at the screen. Phase 3 was beginning. And now, it would not just be revenge. It would be survival. Cal stood in the hallway watching her sleep. The bedroom was dark except for a line of orange light from the street lamp cutting across the bed. Her breathing was uneven. Shallow. Earlier that day, he had slipped the microcassette recorder into her purse. It was not evidence. He had already collected everything he needed. This was different. This was history. He had found the old tape buried in a box in the garage, one of the few things he had never digitized. It was from the early days of their marriage, back when he still carried field equipment everywhere, including his first recorder. The tape held a message he had once recorded for her in case he never came back. His voice then was younger, warmer. "If you are hearing this, it means I did not make it. But know this, I never stopped watching over you. Not because of duty, because of love." He had left the tape without a label. Let her press play on her own. And she had. He heard her sobs from the hallway, hours later. She cried into her hands. Not the loud, guilt-drenched kind she had used to manipulate. This was different. It was memory breaking through. Regret seeping in. He did not comfort her. He did not walk away, either. He just stood in the shadows, listening to her come undone. Because even betrayal has to confront its ghosts. And now, she had met hers. The next morning, Lena sat across from Cal at the kitchen table, a silence between them that felt older than the walls. "I need to tell you something," she said. He looked up from his coffee. Waited. She hesitated. Then, "They came to me first. Not Trent. Not anyone I knew." Cal stayed still. "They said you were dangerous." that you had done things before we met. Things that could get us both hurt. They showed me files. Footage. You believed them, he said. She nodded slowly. At first, yes. But later, I did not want to know the truth. I was already in too deep. His voice was flat. So you helped them. I did not know what Trent really was. He was just supposed to keep tabs. I never thought it would get this far. Kel studied her face. No one ever does. She wiped her eyes. I thought if I cooperated, they would leave us alone. And now I know they will never stop. Kel leaned back in his chair. The weight of what she said settled into the room like dust. All this time, she had not started the game, but she had played her part willingly. She had not been the architect of his destruction. She had been the opening move. And now, even she wanted out. But the board was already set, and someone else was still moving the pieces. That night, Lena sat on the porch alone, smoking a cigarette she had not touched in years. Her hands trembled slightly. Kel stood inside, just behind the screen door, watching her through the thin mesh. She had told the truth, or just enough of it to buy time. He could not tell yet. But one thing was certain. She may not have designed the trap, but she had stepped into it, owned it, walked it further than anyone forced her to. And she never once warned him. That was what stayed in his chest like a blade. Not the lies. The silence. He stepped outside, sat beside her. She looked at him, startled, then looked away. I did not know what else to do, she whispered. It got too far. You could have stopped, he said. She nodded. I know. They sat in silence. Then she asked, Are you going to leave me? Kel turned his head, looked at her. No, he said. Not yet. She flinched. But not because I forgive you. She said nothing. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You are still useful. And if they think we are falling apart, they might try to act. Push their timeline. You were using me? She asked, voice barely audible. Cal looked her dead in the eyes. I am doing exactly what you did. He stood and walked inside, leaving the screen door creaking behind him. She sat still, cigarette burning to ash in her fingers. She had chosen her side. Now she would have to live on it. At 5:06 a.m., Cal's phone buzzed with a silent alert. Perimeter breach. Bay door open. He was already moving. Within 90 seconds, he had a jacket over his shirt, keys in hand, and a Glock tucked behind his waistband. He did not drive. He ran. For blocks in near darkness, feet pounding pavement, heart steady. The shop looked untouched from the outside. Too untouched. He unlocked the side entrance carefully, flashlight in hand, gun raised. Everything was in place, the lifted engine block, the air compressor, the metal tool chest. Nothing stolen. Nothing broken. Except for the smell. Burnt plastic. Synthetic oil. He turned toward the back wall where his truck was parked. Then he saw it. A black box tucked behind the rear tire. Wires. Simple. Crude. But deadly. He knelt slowly. No timer. No trigger device visible. This was not a bomb meant to explode immediately. It was waiting. Remote detonated. Directional. It had been meant to go off while he was driving. Or worse, when Lena was in the passenger seat. Kel exhaled through his nose. His expression did not change. He pulled out his phone, took 4 photos. Then he texted one word to a hidden number. Deploy. He called in a cleanup from a contact 2 towns over. Someone who owed him from a past life. 30 minutes later, the bomb was gone. No police. No report. By sunrise, the shop looked untouched again. But Kel knew better. This was a warning. Except they had underestimated one thing. Warnings only work on men who are afraid. He had buried fear a long time ago. Trent opened the door at exactly 9:12 p.m. with a casual smirk and a drink in his hand. Back again, he said. Your timing's weird. Cal stood in the hallway with his hands in his jacket pockets. I came to talk, he said simply. Trent gestured him inside, unbothered. You look tired, man. You should really take a vacation or something. Cal stepped in slowly, scanned the room. Clean lines, minimal clutter, but the faint smell of cologne mixed with printer ink. Someone had been working here recently. You made a mistake, Cal said, turning to face him fully. Trent raised an eyebrow. One of us did. I know what you tried to do. The bomb. The files. The fake court motion. I know you thought I would fold. Trent sipped his drink, unfazed. But you did not, he said flatly. No, Cal answered. And that is what makes this worse for you. Trent laughed. You think you can threaten me? You are just a guy with a wrench and a grudge. Cal stepped closer. You are not even worth my full strength. Not yet. He took out a single photo from his jacket pocket and tossed it on the table. Trent picked it up. It was a picture of his mother, standing in her front yard, smiling, yesterday's newspaper in her hand. Trent froze. Cal leaned in. His voice dropped. That was me being merciful. He turned and walked out without another word. Trent's hands were still shaking when the door closed. By morning, Cal had activated 3 identities. One under the name Elliot Kane, with access to old financial networks tied to Trident's laundering routes. The second, Wade Bishop, was used to rent an empty warehouse under a shell company. And the third, untouched for years, was simply labeled Spectre. He booted up his full rig at the ghost house. Multiple monitors blinked alive. Drive sequences synced. His encryption keys opened dead mail accounts that had been dormant for over a decade. He launched what he called Operation Ghost Wrench. Phase 1, cripple their cache. He routed a timed data leak through a public watchdog site. Tax records, forged deeds, illegal holding funds, exposed in layers. Anonymous sources. No name attached. Phase 2, expose their shadows. He sent every contract, every surveillance log, every audio file involving Lena and Trent to 7 journalists across 4 states. One of them had interviewed him once, back when he had been off the radar and made sure of it. Phase 3, wrought their loyalty. A series of fake messages were sent to internal members of Trident, suggesting that Trent had been cooperating with federal agents to protect himself. Cal planted enough truth to make the lie believable. By the time the clock hit 3 p.m., chaos had already begun. Trident's internal systems went offline. Trent's offshore accounts were frozen. And Lena? She received a call from her employer asking about her connection to an ongoing investigation. Cal sat in the dark, watching it all unfold on split screens. No smile, no satisfaction, just focus. Because revenge was not rage. It was design. And his design was just beginning to squeeze. Lena's phone would not stop buzzing. It started with a voicemail from her manager, tense, clipped. We need to talk about the documents you were CC'd on. Then came a block number call. A voice she did not recognize. Mr. Weldon is being investigated. You might be implicated. She paced the kitchen floor barefoot, still in her robe. Her coffee sat untouched, going cold. The third call came from her sister. Lena, what the hell is going on? Some reporter just called me asking about you and some ex-military guy. She could not breathe. She checked her email. 4 flag messages, all from senders she did not know. Subject lines like, Public Record Correction Request, Lena Strong, Inquiry regarding corporate surveillance files, legal notice of pending story. Right to respond. She clicked none of them. She just stared. The floor felt unstable. The house felt colder. Or maybe it was just her hands. She ran to the garage. Cal was not there. She searched the driveway. His truck was gone. She grabbed her purse, fingers trembling, and called Trent. Straight to voicemail. Again. No answer. She ran to the living room. Turned on the television. News ticker. Whistleblower dump reveals Trident corruption, illegal domestic operations. She dropped the remote. Cal, she whispered. But he was not there to hear it. And now? She did not even know what side she was on anymore. At 7:12 p.m., Lena found the second flash drive. This time slipped into the mailbox, wrapped in nothing but a napkin. She brought it inside like it was radioactive. Plugged it into her laptop. It contained one file. Play_me.wave, she clicked. Cal's voice filled the room. But not the cold, quiet tone she had gotten used to. This voice was raw. Steady but full of something else. I wanted to believe it was love. I built you a life. A house. A world where you never had to be afraid. There was a pause. I am not the man you thought you married. But you are not the woman I thought I saved. Lena covered her mouth. You used to say you liked the way I kept things quiet. That I never lost my temper. That I listened. Another pause. That was not kindness. That was restraint. Silence again. Then, I am done holding back. The audio ended. Lena backed away from the laptop. Her body shook, not from fear, but from finally realizing he had never been behind her. He had always been ahead. Cal stood in the safe house, staring at his board. Strings, pins, faces, all aligned. But something was off. He replayed the motel audio from days ago. Trent had been panicked. Lena had been nervous. Too nervous. Then Cal saw it. The hesitation in her voice was not from fear. It was from planning. He scanned the voice logs again. Cross-referenced dates. Then it hit him. She had called Trent before she received the first flash drive. The timestamps were wrong. She had never been caught off guard. She had been performing. She had known. And she had lied. Again. Cal's jaw flexed. She had flipped the playbook on him. Used emotion, tears, regret, to buy time. And it had worked. For a moment. But now he saw her clearly again. And the final stage of his plan would begin without warning. Trent never saw it coming. At 5:30 a.m., the house was raided. Four agents in tactical gear breached the front and back simultaneously. He was pulled from his bed half-naked, screaming. Face down. Handcuffed. Charged with conspiracy, data theft, and unlawful surveillance. Everything Cal had leaked had hit its target. But what no one knew. Cal had been inside the house just hours before. Under the bed. Quiet. Still. He had slipped in through the back window at 2:14 a.m., planted a final set of files, and made a private copy of Trent's secure phone. He had listened to one last call. We need to get her out too, Trent said. She is exposed. The voice on the other end had replied. She was always disposable. Cal recorded it. Saved it. Because when Lena heard that, he wanted it to be the last piece of her illusion to shatter. He slipped out of the house 10 minutes before the raid. No one saw him. No one ever did. Because ghosts are not meant to be seen. Only felt when the damage is done. The story broke at 6:05 p.m. Not just online. National TV, evening broadcasts, top headlines. Trident executive arrested in Black Ops leak. But the deeper hit came 20 minutes later. A second story aired. A deep dive segment on the man they called Spectre. The ghost who had vanished from military files. The operative connected to black missions across 5 continents. Cal. They used footage from an old diplomatic camera. He was younger in it. Colder. No beard. Eyes empty. They did not say his name. But the story was clear. And Lena? She saw it all. She stood frozen in the living room, remote dangling from her hand, lips parted but silent. The man she had been married to. He was not just quiet. He was legendary. He was dangerous. He was no longer just a mechanic. He was the one every government agency had failed to catch. And now, he had made the news on his own terms. The phone rang at 9:44 p.m. Cal let it vibrate once. Twice. 3 times. Then he picked up. Lena's voice cracked immediately. Please. I need to talk to you. He said nothing. I saw everything. The news. The files. Why did you not tell me who you were? Still, he stayed silent. I was scared. I swear to God. Cal, I thought they would hurt you. I thought I could keep us safe if I just... No, he said finally. That one word cut her off. You made a choice, he said. She sobbed into the phone. I did not mean to destroy everything. You did not destroy me, he replied. You just revealed yourself. Cal, please, what do I do now? He paused. Let the silence weigh. You survive, he said coldly. Then he hung up. No anger. No shouting. Just distance. And that was worse than hate. He met her in the place where it all began. The abandoned warehouse he had used as his command center. She arrived alone. Shaking. Makeup smeared. Face drawn. She looked older now. Not from age. From guilt. She stepped inside. Saw the walls. Maps. Photos. Notes. Her own face circled in red. Is this where you have been watching me? She asked softly. Cal nodded once. She stepped forward. I need you to know something. He waited. I never stopped loving you, she whispered. You stopped protecting me, he replied. She looked down. They threatened to erase your past. Said you would be hunted again. I thought if I gave them what they wanted, you gave them me. No, she said quickly. I gave them parts. Details. Nothing they could use. You gave them leverage, he said. And they used you until you became just another tool. Tears welled up in her eyes. He stepped closer, took something from his pocket. A flash drive. Listen to this, he said. Then you will know what they really thought of you. He placed it in her hand and walked away. This time, she did not stop him, because for the first time, she had nothing left to say. Lena sat alone in her car, parked at the edge of an empty lot. She plugged the drive into the dashboard. Audio played. Trent's voice. Sharp. Disconnected. She was never going to last. She is weak. Emotional. But she got us what we needed. Another voice, someone higher up. Then cut her loose. She still thinks she matters. Trent laughed. Let her burn. She's a liability now. Silence followed. Then the audio looped. Lena stared at the dash. Her hands trembled. Everything she had done, she thought it was for something. But she had been nothing more than a chess piece. A pawn. And Cal? He had let her hear it from their own mouths. Not out of cruelty. Out of truth. She screamed loud, broken. Punched the steering wheel. Cried until her voice gave out. In the distance, a silent drone hovered in the sky. Watching. Recording. Not to expose her. Just to prove a point. This was what betrayal learned. Lena stood outside the house with her keys in one hand and the flash drive in the other. She had not moved for 15 minutes. The audio still rang in her ears, Trent's voice laughing, dismissing her like trash. Her fingers curled tightly around the flash drive until the plastic cracked. She walked inside. Cal sat in the living room. Lights dimmed, his back to her. A single desk lamp illuminated a wall of newspaper clippings and photos. Evidence. History. She placed the drive on the table. I listened. He said nothing. I did everything wrong, she whispered. But I still believed I was doing it for us. I see now that was a lie I told myself. Cal stood slowly. Walked past her. She turned. Is there any part of you that can forgive me? He stopped at the doorway. Looked at her. I forgave you the first time, he said. That is what made you think you could do it again. Tears fell silently down her cheeks. He turned the corner and disappeared into the hall. She collapsed onto the couch, shaking. Forgiveness, she realized, was not mercy. It was a tool, and he had just used it on her. The next morning, Lena was served papers at the front door. Not by a process server. Not by a lawyer. By a courier. Silent. Efficient. She opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside were 4 documents. The first, a notarized statement of property transfer, dated 6 months ago. The second, power of attorney, signed in her own handwriting. She had signed it during a refinance meeting Cal had scheduled last fall. He had buried it inside the standard disclosures. She had never read them carefully. The third, ownership filings for their home, now under Kane Asset Holdings. The fourth, divorce papers. Her knees buckled. She sat on the floor of the hallway, surrounded by legal ink and the echo of her own carelessness. He had already moved. Months ago, before she ever knew he was watching. And now? She owned nothing. Not even the name she had signed so blindly. At dusk, Cal sat alone in the back of his old truck, parked on a ridge just outside the city. From here, he could see the skyline, the blinking towers, the steady rise of lights into night. He held a simple manila envelope in his lap. Inside, every piece of remaining evidence. Backup drives, photographs, bank trails, files from both Trident and Lena's shared betrayal. He had made a copy for himself. But this package? It was going somewhere special. He sealed it, wrote one name across the front. Senator Wallace Green, the man Lena had said would protect them once. The man who had secretly funded Trident operations in exchange for off-books data. Cal started the engine. Tomorrow, the envelope would land on the senator's desk. Not with a threat, but with a warning. Try to rebuild this, and I will come back. He did not need to be loud. He only needed to remind him he still existed. Once a ghost, always a ghost. Lena found him packing a duffel bag in the garage. She stood in the doorway, pale, eyes red. You are leaving? She asked. Cal zipped the bag. I have done what I needed to do. But what about me? She asked, voice shaking. What am I supposed to do now? He looked at her, long and hard. You learn, he said. Learn what? That actions have gravity. Her breath hitched. You are not even angry. That is what scares me most. I was angry a long time ago, Cal replied. That part died. What you are seeing now, that is focus. She stepped closer. I thought you loved me. He paused. I did. She reached out to touch his arm. He stepped back. You said you forgave me. I did, he said. But forgiveness does not mean I forget. He slung the bag over his shoulder and walked out. Lena stood there alone, surrounded by silence and the fading sound of tires on gravel. The man she betrayed had not just left her. He had outlived her. At 6 a.m., Cal walked into the last building he would ever touch in this city. It was a print shop, tucked behind a pawn store, with no signage and a dead security camera above the door. Inside, the man behind the counter barely looked up. Cal placed a sealed envelope on the counter. No words. No eye contact. The man nodded. Same arrangement? Cal gave a single nod. By noon, 23 copies of that envelope would be delivered across the city, to journalists, prosecutors, defense attorneys, union reps, and 2 separate congressional offices. Each contained a curated file, corruption within Trident, payments to law enforcement, and a secret contract linking Senator Wallace Greene to unauthorized domestic intelligence programs. It was not revenge. It was exposure, the final stage of cleansing the rot. By 4 p.m., local media was flooded. News vans gathered. Cell phones buzzed with notifications. And Lena? She watched it happen from a motel room, too ashamed to go home, too terrified to face anyone who once knew her. Her photo showed up on one of the reports, just for a moment. A caption, source turned accomplice. Internal leak confirms civilian link. She shut the TV off. The past she had betrayed was now dragging her name down with it. And Cal? He was not there to watch. Because justice is not something you wait around for. You leave it behind. Lena returned to the house 3 days later. The lights were off. The driveway empty. The mailbox overflowing. Inside, the air was still. No smell of motor oil. No quiet music from the garage radio. No Cal. On the kitchen table sat a single note. Not handwritten. Typed. Precise. You chose your future when you sold my past. I do not need to take anything from you. You already lost everything worth keeping. See, her knees gave out before she could finish reading it a second time. Upstairs, his side of the closet was empty. Drawers cleared. Tools gone. He had not just left. He had erased himself. No forwarding address. No calls. No revenge speech. Just closure. Delivered with surgical precision. She held the note to her chest like it was a wound. Because it was. At 2:15 a.m., a secure van was scheduled to move Trent from holding to federal custody. It never arrived. The transport team was intercepted halfway across the bridge at Silver Creek. The driver was found unconscious, non-fatal sedative. The guards zip-tied to a tree. And Trent? Gone. No signs of struggle. No footage. No alarm triggered. He had simply vanished. Authorities suspected an inside job. News outlets speculated foreign interference. The FBI released a statement about active recovery operations. But no one asked the right question. No one asked, who wanted him gone the most? Cal never said a word. Never claimed it. But the silence spoke volumes. Some men go to prison. Others go to pieces. And some disappear into the places where shadows live, dragged there by hands you never see. Lena stood in line at the pharmacy. Hair in a knot. Dark circles under her eyes. Hoodie pulled tight. She caught someone whisper her name. 2 strangers looked at her, then looked away. That was her life now. People glanced. They judged. They walked off. Her credit card declined. Again. Her bank accounts were frozen during the federal inquiry. Her name was flagged in 3 databases. She left the bottle of aspirin on the counter and walked out. She wandered to her car, sat behind the wheel, and stared at her reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back was not who she used to be. The life she had known, quiet mornings, kisses, comfort, it was gone. Not taken. Lost. Piece by piece. By her own hands. And the man who had loved her the most. He had burned her without ever raising his voice. Because real punishment is not loud. It is slow. It is patient. It is final. It was just past noon when Cal pulled up to the quiet gravel road where his old shop used to sit. Now it was under a new name. Kane Motors, operated by a former Marine he had once trained during a covert security detail in Morocco. A man with no ties to Cal's past, but plenty of loyalty. The building had changed. Fresh paint, new signage. But the layout was the same. Cal walked in wearing plain denim and a buttoned shirt. No beard. Just stubble and a different name. The receptionist smiled politely. "You here for an appointment?" "No," he said with a small nod. "Just passing through." He scanned the space. The smell of grease. The faint click of tools. A younger man tuning an engine, swearing under his breath, focused and tired, reminded him of someone. Cal sat on the old bench by the window. He could hear the rhythm of work. Life. Continuity. Not surveillance. Not secrets. Just motion. He leaned back. Let the sunlight touch his face. Out there, Lena was living in silence. Trent was erased. The system they served? Collapsing. And Cal? He was not angry. He was not proud. He was done. Not retired. Not vanished. Just free. A diner sat off Route 90, the kind of place where truckers stopped and no one asked questions. Cal took a corner booth. Ordered coffee. Black. He was flipping through a local paper when the bell above the door chimed. A kid walked in. Early 20s. Nervous. Pale. Looking over his shoulder like a hunted animal. He sat across from Cal without asking. "I was told you could help." Cal looked up slowly. "Who told you that?" The kid swallowed. "A woman. She said if I was being watched, if they were inside everything, I should find the man who fixes broken systems." Cal stared at him. "What is your name?" "Danny." "Who is watching you, Danny?" The kid looked at him with something between fear and hope. Cal sipped his coffee. "I used to fix cars," he said. "Now I fix people who got left behind." Danny's eyes widened slightly. "So you are him." Cal smiled just a little. "I am no one," he said. "But I am still here." And outside, the wind picked up. Because some men do not vanish. They just wait. Later that night, Cal sat by a motel window overlooking the desert. The sky was full of stars. No sounds except wind scraping dry sand against the walls. He turned on the small tape recorder he carried. The same one from years ago. He pressed record. If anyone ever hears this, understand something. It was never about revenge. Not really. It was about memory. About not letting people rewrite the truth. About consequences. He paused. "I loved her. That never changed. But love without loyalty? That is just decoration." He clicked the tape off. Stared out into the darkness. A quiet knock came at the door. "Danny again. They are moving. You ready?" Cal stood. Slipped the tape recorder into his coat. Always. They walked into the night together. The ghost. And the boy chasing shadows. And somewhere, deep in the heart of the people who watch this story, a question lingers. If you were in Cal's place, would you forgive her? Or would you burn it all down and never look back? Let us know in the comments. Where are you watching from? Drop your country, city, or cave bunker below.